Listen to me. Can we talk? Just me and you. We can't do this every single time, all right? We just can't. Good afternoon to you. Good Monday afternoon. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is the new Double Shot Show. It comes your way every weekday afternoon. And this one in particular is going to be, before we get into setting up the Bengals and everything else invested in Cincinnati week, every time the Steelers lose isn't a cataclysm. Okay, it isn't fire the coach, get rid of this guy, get rid of that guy. TJ Watt's washed up. The list is really long, and especially all of that goes double, triple, quadruple when it comes to Mike Tomlin. Look, some stuff happened in Cleveland that was not ideal. Going to be getting into some of those later in the program with Chris Halleck. Those things need to be addressed. First and foremost, the offensive line needs to be addressed. I don't know how, but if you don't address it, you've at least got to avoid it. You've got to work around it. But this idea that every time they lose, it's, oh no, here it goes again. This reminds me of ... One of the nice things, maybe the only nice thing about Thursday football is that the rest of us get the weekend off. We can actually watch other games. Do you ever look at other games? You just watch the Steelers? I can't answer that. My guess is that a lot of Steelers fans just watch the Steelers. I'm sure that's true of every team everywhere. But yesterday in the National Football League, and I totally went junkie on Red Zone. I can't take my eyes off of that thing. It's like even the commercials are interesting. You just go on for hours and hours and hours. And I'll tell you what I saw. I saw the Panthers, who shouldn't have won a bleeping game this year, almost beat the Chiefs. They were this close to beating the Chiefs. Chiefs pulled it out. Chiefs are 10-1, but they've got a plus 55 points differential. The Steelers have a better points differential than the Chiefs. Did you know that? Steelers are plus 67. I saw the Titans go into Houston and beat the Texans. How? How does that happen? That's not at all a good Tennessee team. I saw competitive football everywhere. I saw super tight scores throughout. I saw, and if you saw this, you know exactly what I'm about to say, the most ridiculous finish in Landover, Maryland between the Redskins, I knew I was going to do that at some point in the show, the Commanders and the Cowboys. And the Cowboys to come away under this kick return that looked like something out of a video game, just spinning around and running through people for 94 yards. And then the great Terry McLaurin, really becoming a fan of this guy, makes this amazing catch, goes downfield for like 100 yards, and all they need to do to send it into overtime is an extra point. Extra point misses. And the Cowboys beat a 7-4 Washington team. This happens all the time in this league. There is exactly one team in the NFL that is playing at a level that would satisfy you. And that's Detroit. That's it. I can't even put Buffalo into that category, although the Bills themselves, they're 9-2. The Chiefs are 10-1. The Lions are 10-1, but the Lions have a plus 177 points differential. They're just running away with games. They're making them boring. This is what fans love. Fans don't want to get nervous. They don't want to enter the second half going and doing whatever it was that the people in Dallas and Washington were doing yesterday. That's the other version is fun. The other version is easy. Well, the NFL, it can be fun, but it's never easy. It's never easy. When we come back, I'm going to be joined by Chris, as I mentioned, and we're going to go over some of the stuff that they do need to fix.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores, track the latest stats, chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Joined now by Chris Halleck. And Chris, you look back over those final few minutes in Cleveland, and the list of things that either Mike Tomlin or Arthur Smith or both messed up, it's pretty long, isn't it?
The list is long throughout the entire game, but yeah, especially in those last few minutes. The whole sequence leading up to that third down.
Third down.
Yeah, the third down, the fourth down. Do you accept the penalty? Do you not accept the penalty? Is there intentional grounding? Oh, there's not. Okay, well, we want to accept the penalty instead of decline. Like that entire sequence. Now, part of that was not on them. That was partially the referees Tomlin not hearing what the officials were actually saying. That's what he said. And then some of the players actually told me that they weren't given a chance to really actually substitute. And so that's why they had to burn the timeout. But outside of that, just about every other timeout that was used not used well at all. And then,
but even that timeout though, Chris, they didn't make any changes.
Yeah.
They called the timeout and they kept the same personnel on the field. And it wasn't the only timeout that was misused in that second half. And there's just so much about it that was unsettling. And I have a feeling that that's probably what was most unsettling for the fan base. It wasn't that they lost. It wasn't that they lost to the Browns. It wasn't that they lost in the snow or any of that kind of stuff. It was that there was a familiar feel, an all too familiar feel to some of it. It's almost like you can live with it if you're a Steelers fan, if it's a player messing up. But as soon as it's the head coach, now you have the common denominator. You have the constant that's been in play since they haven't won a playoff game in forever. You know what I'm saying here? I mean, that was the part that was kind of like, geez, really? Really? You got to 8-2 and you're still doing stuff like that?
Yeah. Some of that I think is just Tomlin sticking with what he wants to do. And the best example in terms of clock management and using timeouts is he very, very much wants to keep one final timeout in his pocket for as long as he possibly can in case he gets to a situation in which they're driving down the field and they need to stop the clock in order to try to kick a field goal. And he's like,
kick a field goal.
It's like, bam, I have a timeout. I don't have to worry about the offense trying to rush up and spike the ball, not getting set in time. And now we run out of time. But like there in the first half, for example, he held on to the final timeout and let 40 seconds run off the clock when he could have had, I think it was over a minute and a half of time with no timeouts. I think you'd rather have the 90 plus seconds with no timeouts because then it's still more time. There are still other ways to stop the clock. Yeah, you have to waste it down. I get it, but it's just the same stuff. It's the same. It's sticking with
It's the same stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. It's if we get macro on this isn't new. This isn't anything that's changed really over the years. A handful of years ago, this was in Cincinnati. I don't remember the exact scenario, but there was a clock mismanagement issue. I'm sorry, no, it was an instant replay issue. Where Tomlin either did or didn't know that he should have challenged. And I asked him after the game how he made the call. And it was from there that it became public for the first time, meaning right out of Tomlin's mouth, that he's looking at the scoreboard. He's looking at the scoreboard to determine whether or not there should be a challenge. No, this is the year 2024. I cover two other teams in town. The Penguins have a team of people studying every offside entry across the ice, every single thing that happens, just in case there's a challengeable issue here. The Pirates have a guy who just does that, who just watches replays, and they have him with him on the road. They're radioing in to the head coach, or in the Pirates case, the manager, and saying, hey, whoa, hey, not good. Stop, challenge, replay, something. And Tomlin's looking at the scoreboard. Now, the subject of replays and clock management for that issue come up every single offseason, every January at Tomlin's exit press conferences. Mike, do you think you're going to consider going out and getting one of these clock management guys? Some teams have them. The Rams have. I know the Rams are one of them. And they just have a guy who just does that, who's just looking at replays and everything else and making sure that Sean McVay's got all the information that he needs. Okay? Why is this allowed to continue? Because you and I are in the press box in Cleveland. We knew what the calls on the field were. How did the head coach of the visiting team not know?
Yeah, that was the confusing part to me whenever he said, talking about that sequence near the end of the game where there was the penalty called for the illegal touching, when Queen hit Winston and the offensive lineman turned around and tried to catch it, which is obviously a penalty. But they thought it was intentional grounding and they thought that the referee had called that. And so, yeah, that part I don't understand. And that his explanation after the game to me didn't truly answer that, because it's like, how do you think that that's what's called? Because the referees are, should be communicating with you, and they ended up doing that. And it just took forever to get it. It is just another symptom of this entire thing, which to me puts it in an even bigger perspective here. Why is this team so bad on Thursday nights? Like, they're 2-9 under Tomlin.
I don't buy Thursday night stuff. I don't buy Monday night stuff. I don't care. That stuff you're comparing teams that have nothing to do with each other. Stuff that goes years back. It's a day of the week. That might be the one thing that I would we could respectfully disagree on this one. I just don't see anything there. I'm sorry. And to me, the way bigger issue, actually infinitely bigger issue, is that this game was in hand.
Yes.
Okay. With all the other stuff that had gone wrong, with how bad the offensive line was, with other things that didn't necessarily go the Steelers' way, they rallied back and took the lead. And we should have been talking about a W today. We should have been talking about all their resilience and facing the negative factors and everything. And they blew it. And they blew it at the coach level. And I'm not one of those people who every time the Steelers win, it's the players, yay, and every time they lose, it's the coaches, boo. I don't buy that, okay? Yeah. But this one, it's hard to ignore. Let's talk about Smith putting Justin Fields out there when Russ had been 18 of 22. Now, we agree, you and I know this because we're sitting next to each other, that Russ wasn't at his best. Mm-hmm. But do you really take Russ off the field there?
Well, it wasn't
when you need to. You see what I'm saying?
No, it wasn't just that. It was the fact that even though Russ wasn't at his best on 3rd and 4th down, he completed passes. He took a couple of sacks, which you don't want to ever do. But he still completed a lot of passes on 3rd and 4th down. And so for potentially the biggest 3rd down of the game in which you can continue to hold on to the football. That's a bad coaching decision to not have Russell Wilson out there on that 3rd down, especially if the play call. By the way, the play call is a go route.
The play call is a go route. It's a 50-50 ball for George. Which if there isn't like this, these flakes were like monsters falling from the sky. This wasn't. So I don't know how that looked on TV to everybody, but this was massive snowfall. I don't know how you look up and see a football.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And look, if George had pulled it off, we all say, wow, that's George. He's awesome. But the chances of that play succeeding were so small that I just can't fathom that it was called. I really can't.
Yeah, I can't. And it's a bad play call, which again, you want to blame Arthur Smith. That's fine. But we're just talking coaching level, regardless of whether it's the offensive coordinator, the head coach, the coaching was as bad as it's been all season in that game.
All season.
And it was
all season in that game.
Yeah,
yes.
It was bad. There was a play earlier in the game in which they're running a 3rd and short and they're on that fringe field goal range, especially with that weather. Mm-hmm. And they go out and run with Michael Pruitt out there, and the one receiver that's on the field was Ben Skoranek. It's like,
you mumbled it as it happened. You go, Skoranek.
Why is Skoranek the only receiver on the field on a 3rd and short? Like, and then you run a concept that is
Look,
only best run with receivers, not tight ends. Oh man.
Before we go to break, let's remind everybody that there's nothing dumber that we see on the football field in any context, in any setting, than the 2nd and 9 runs. And they just will not stop. The 2nd and 9 runs will not stop. When we come back, J1Q.
Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different. Help prevent gun accidents, misuse, and theft. Keep firearms safe and secure when not in use. For safe storage options, visit projectchildsafe.org.
Time now for J1Q. That stands for just one question if you're new around here. And let's head out to the wrong end of the Commonwealth.
Hey, DK. It's Dante from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Huge Steelers fan. Just wondering why you think that we are always sending a 4-man pressure. It seems like we're making our defensive backs cover for way too long. It seems like we're very successful when we send at least 5. I just wondering what your thoughts were.
Kind of advertising my thoughts here by nodding throughout your terrific question there, Dante, because one of the things that you have to do if you're Mike Tomlin, Terrell Austin, you have to make sure that your best player, singular, is your best player. And I don't think anybody would dispute that TJ Watt wasn't the Steelers' best player the other night in Cleveland. In fact, he wasn't even close to it. And I cringe at criticizing TJ in any way because I think that much of him, of his fire, of his drive, of his selflessness. And what he did in the previous 2 weeks was he showed that selfless side because he and the other edge rusher, whether it was Alex Highsmith or Nick Herbig, understood the assignment. They knew that they had to keep Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson in the pocket. Don't let them get out. Don't overrun them. Don't over pursue, which of course is going to cost you sacks and hurries and hits and all that other stuff, right? Not so in Cleveland. In Cleveland, the ears were pinned back. In Cleveland, they were going to go after Jameis Winston, but they didn't. And the reason, well, I shouldn't say they didn't go after him. They didn't get to him. They didn't get close to him. And the reason for that is the Browns smartly, I'm really surprised more teams don't do this, copied the Colts, who smartly, and I'm surprised teams don't do this, back when the Colts did it, they chipped, they double teamed. They said, we're not going to let your best player beat us. If we get beat by Highsmith or Herbig or somebody else coming after us, we can live with it. But our scheme is going to erase your best guy. We're going to intentionally walk your best hitter. And the Steelers, in both cases, meaning in Indianapolis and in Cleveland, said, we're fine with it. They didn't do what you are suggesting here, Dante, which is to make themselves a lot less predictable. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. A lot of people are, when they communicate with me, they're saying, well, why don't you just move TJ around? Well, you can do that. The TJ is not necessarily great from other spots on the line. He's set up to be where he is, but you can do that. What you also can do is if they're going to put 2 people or even just chip your best player, send some more bodies to other parts of the line and go get them. That did not happen in Cleveland. And that's yet another coaching mistake that occurred there. That's not okay. I'll say it again. I respect what the Steelers did schematically and what TJ did against both Washington and Baltimore. It made sense for those opponents. But this idea that, we're so great, we can only rush 4 guys, because that's what the answer is, Dante. They want to have 4 guys rushing so that they don't have to worry about blitzing, so that they can keep maximum number of people protecting, covering, and ensuring against the splash play. Okay, well, yay you. But there are other circumstances. And Cleveland presented one of those. And neither Austin nor Tomlin adjusted to that. And that's not okay. TJ Watt needs to be your best player Sunday in Cincinnati. And if he isn't, I'm sure not going to be blaming TJ. I appreciate the question. Again, it was a really, really good one. I appreciate everybody checking out the new Double Shot Show. We'll be back with another one tomorrow.